My name is Rachel Hart. I'm 34, and I never expected to be erased from my parents' will like I was nothing. If you've ever felt overlooked or betrayed by your own family, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. I had just returned from the funeral home when I found out. My father had passed away suddenly from a stroke. No warning, no final words, just silence. And in that silence, my mother had already started planning what to do with everything he left behind. Except me. We had to make some hard decisions, Mom told me on the phone the day after the service. Her voice was stiff, emotionless. You've always been independent, Rachel. You don't need the inheritance. My blood turned cold. What are you talking about? I asked, gripping the phone. Dad and he would have never. He didn't change the will, she interrupted. But your brother and I updated the estate plan. You're not included anymore. They cut me out. Just like that. I wasn't even shocked, because if I'm honest, this wasn't the first time I'd been left behind. For the last 15 years, I was the one bailing them out. When Dad needed $20,000 to keep his dental practice afloat during the recession, I wired it. When Mom racked up hospital bills after her hip replacement, I put the expenses on my insurance, then paid the difference myself. When my brother Shane wanted to start a business to honor Dad, I co-signed the loan and paid it off myself when he defaulted, and I never asked for anything back. Not a thank you, not a favor, just respect, maybe a little acknowledgement. But I should have known better. At the reading of the will, my name wasn't mentioned once. Shane inherited the house, the business, even Dad's classic car. Mom kept the vacation property in Maui. And me? Boo! I sat in the back of the lawyer's office with a folder on my lap, containing every check I'd ever written for them, and one other thing, an insurance policy. It was tucked in the back of my file, signed by Dad 3 years ago, when I convinced him to do estate planning with me. He added me as the sole beneficiary on his $500,000 life insurance. I guess he forgot to tell Mom and Shane. Or maybe he didn't. That night, I got a call from Shane. I know you're upset, he said, but this is what Dad wanted. No, I replied calmly. It's what you wanted. And you manipulated Mom into thinking I was fine being the family ATM. That's not fair, he snapped. You always made more money than us. Because I worked 3 jobs while you played entrepreneur. Silence. I hope you enjoy the house, I added. You'll need it. What does that mean? But I had already hung up, because while they were celebrating their inheritance, I was making a different kind of move. A quiet one they'd never see coming. I used to think if I worked hard enough, they'd see me. That if I stayed quiet, helped out, kept the peace, one day I'd earn their approval. But the truth was, I was invisible the moment Shane was born. The golden child. The miracle boy after 3 miscarriages. The heir to everything, except responsibility. I still remember my 10th birthday. I invited 6 friends over for a sleepover. But that same night, Shane had a soccer game, so Mom told my friends to leave early. We need the house quiet when Shane gets home, she said. He was 7. They gave him a cake the size of a wedding tier for his birthday 2 weeks later. I got store-brand cupcakes and paper plates that read, Happy B-Day. It never changed. In high school, I got a full ride for chemistry. Mom called it cute. When Shane flunked algebra, they paid for a private tutor, took him to Disneyland to reduce his stress, and bought him a new bike. In college, I worked 2 jobs and slept 4 hours a night. Shane changed majors 3 times, and Dad still paid his rent, tuition, and bar tabs. When I landed a consulting job out of grad school, I sent money home without question. They needed help with the mortgage? I wired it. Shane wanted to launch a wellness app? I wrote a check. Mom needed surgery? Hit. I took leave and moved back for 3 months to care for her. I didn't complain. I thought I was doing what families do. But every time I needed support, I was met with silence. When I was hospitalized after a car accident, they visited once. Shane brought me soup, then asked if I could still help with his credit card debt. I started keeping records, not for revenge, just to stay sane. Every transfer, every receipt, every favor I did that became expected. I even saved the emails where Mom called me so responsible and said I'd be just fine on my own, as if being capable meant I didn't deserve care, as if being stable meant I was less human. The breaking point? Mayma? It wasn't even the will. It was a voicemail Mom left a week before Dad died. "Don't come visit yet," she said. "Shane's here and we need the house quiet, you understand." I hadn't seen Dad in 2 months. He passed away 5 days later. I never got to say goodbye. And when I stood at his casket, the only thing Mom whispered to me was, "You didn't need to fly out, you know. Shane's been handling everything." Like I was a guest, like I wasn't even part of the family. So when I got home, I sat down at my desk and opened the folder again. The insurance policy was real. I had notarized it with Dad, driven him to the office, helped him sign the papers. He'd wanted me protected, at least once. And now I had 500,000 reasons to walk away with my head high. They thought they'd written me out. But they forgot I was the one who helped Dad write his legacy. I tried to talk to them, one last time. Maybe some small part of me still wanted to believe it was a mistake, that Mom had misunderstood the documents, that Shane hadn't deliberately pushed me out. So I invited them both to lunch. Neutral ground, no pressure. I even booked a private table at the same quiet Italian restaurant where Dad used to take us on Sundays. But they walked in late, laughing, dressed like they were headed to a resort, and I knew they weren't here to make peace. "I appreciate you coming," I said carefully. Shane barely looked up from his phone. Mom sipped her lemon water like this was a chore. "I just wanted to clear the air." "Oh, honey," Mom sighed, "there's no air to clear. You excluded me from Dad's will." She tilted her head. "That wasn't personal. It's just, Shane has more responsibilities now." I blinked. "You mean the mortgage I helped you pay off? The credit score I helped him rebuild? The business loan I covered?" "Rachel," she said, voice brittle, "don't make this about money. You're being ungrateful." Ungrateful. That word hit like a slap. "I gave up years of my life for this family," I whispered. "Because you wanted to," Shane cut in, finally looking up. "You love playing the martyr." I turned to him slowly. "You begged me for help every time you failed. And now that Dad's gone, you're pretending you earned this." He stood up. "Why are you even here, Rachel? No one owes you anything." I stood too, calm, steady. "You're right." He blinked. "I don't want what I'm owed anymore. I just wanted to see if you were still human." I looked at Mom. She didn't say a word, didn't flinch, didn't blink. I left the restaurant without touching my food, and in the parking lot, I deleted both their numbers. That was the moment I stopped trying to be the good daughter, the helpful sister, the backup plan. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing in my life. When I got back, I opened my laptop and called the insurance company. I verified the policy. 500,000, already processed, already mine. I wired the funds into a new account under my name only. Then I booked a lawyer. There was something else Dad had told me once, something I never thought I'd need. A power of attorney document from years ago, listing me as a co-signer on the practice's retirement disbursement. I found it in my safe. Still valid, still binding. If they wanted to play legal games, so could I. I wasn't angry anymore, just awake. For the first time, I saw my family clearly, and they had no idea what was coming next. 2 weeks after that lunch, Shane called again. I didn't answer. The voicemail was short, frantic. "Hey, Rachel. Something weird's going on with Dad's retirement funds. The bank said your name's on some documents. Can you call me?" I didn't, because I'd already called the bank myself. I'd frozen all distributions until a full audit could be conducted. Why? Because I'd found discrepancies. Large ones, tens of thousands missing, funneled out in the months before Dad passed. Some into Shane's failed business, some into Mom's home renovations. They'd been draining the account while I was covering the bills. My lawyer filed for a formal estate review. With the power of attorney documents and evidence of past financial support, we submitted a request for executor oversight. Suddenly, The will wasn't as final as they thought, especially when we provided records of undue influence, text messages, emails, one voicemail from Mom saying, "We'll get her out of the will. She doesn't need it anyway." That one hit hard, but it helped because it showed intent. The first court meeting was quiet. They didn't expect me to show up with representation. They didn't expect me to look calm. I wore a navy blazer, the same one I'd worn to Dad's funeral. Shane looked nervous. Mom wore sunglasses indoors. The judge ordered a delay in all estate transfers until my claim was reviewed. That was enough. They couldn't sell the house, couldn't access certain funds. And the life insurance? Already mine, sitting safely in a portfolio I'd opened under a trust, with my name alone. I didn't need their inheritance anymore. I was the inheritance. Dad had given me one final gift, the ability to walk away with quiet power. So I did. I changed my number, sold my condo, and bought a new place in the countryside, fully paid in cash. I started my own consultancy firm, named it Heartline Advisory, after Dad. He wasn't perfect, but in the end, he saw me, and I decided that was enough. Shane tried to contact me again months later, a desperate email. "Mom's not doing well. We're losing the house. Please, can we talk?" I didn't reply, because my silence wasn't revenge, it was peace. They gambled everything on the idea that I would always stay quiet, but they forgot one thing. You can't erase someone who never needed your approval to begin with. Have you ever had to walk away from people you once called family? Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power. Send this to someone who needs to know they're not alone. The news of the court order spread through our extended family faster than I expected. Aunt Clara called me first. She was Dad's older sister and one of the only relatives who had ever treated me like more than a spare part. "I had no idea what they were doing to you," she said, her voice tight with emotion. "I thought you were just distant." I told her the truth. Not all of it, just enough for her to understand why I stopped showing up to Christmas 5 years ago, why I sent gifts but never came, why I never invited anyone to my housewarming, even after I'd helped buy theirs. She told me Shane was spiraling. The house was under lien. His business had failed, again, and Mom had taken out a second mortgage without telling him. They were fighting, blaming each other. I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not pity, just distance, like they were characters in a story I'd once been trapped inside, but no longer had to read. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I needed to understand why I stayed for so long, why I kept giving until there was nothing left but resentment. Dr. Klein asked me once, "What would you have wanted from them that would have made it all okay?" I didn't have an answer, because I think I stopped wanting their love a long time ago. What I really wanted was respect. And now, finally, I'd given it to myself. The irony? I didn't even care about the money. I never had. But when you've spent your life being told you don't matter, receiving something tangible, undeniable, feels like finally being seen. The insurance payout wasn't revenge. It was recognition. And what I did with it mattered more than anything. I started a scholarship fund for girls from complicated families who still show up for class. I called it the Rachel Hart Resilience Fund because I never wanted someone like me to think they had to earn love with sacrifice. And every now and then, I'd get these notifications from the court, from the estate, from public record databases, Shane trying to appeal, Mom trying to liquidate assets she no longer had the rights to. I'd read them, then archive them, because I didn't owe them a war I'd already won by walking away. And staying gone, spring came faster than I expected that year. Maybe it was the change of pace. Maybe it was because, for the first time in my life, I had no obligations to anyone but myself. I planted lavender outside my cottage windows, learned to cook meals that weren't just grab and go, started every morning with a walk instead of email, peace wasn't loud. It was small, precise, earned. I still heard from mutual contacts now and then. The house had finally gone into foreclosure. Shane moved back in with Mom. They'd sold Dad's vintage car, below value. Apparently they'd argued about that too. Everyone thought they were untouchable before. Now they were just a sad, cautionary tale. But I didn't gloat, because that would have meant I was still entangled in their chaos, and I wasn't. One afternoon I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. It was from Mom. Rachel, I know you probably won't read this. I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. Not just for the will, for all of it. You were right to walk away, but I miss you. Mom, I sat with the letter for an hour, then I burned it, not out of hate, but because I'd already said goodbye. At that table, in that courtroom, on that voicemail. Some things don't get a second chance. Grief still came in waves, though. For Dad, for the childhood I should have had, for the version of myself that spent so long hoping they'd change. But I stopped blaming myself. That version of me, Fecky, she did her best. She survived. She built something out of nothing, and she deserved to rest. Sometimes I speak at nonprofit events, quiet ones, no spotlight. I just sit with small groups and talk about financial boundaries, toxic family patterns, and how money is never just money. It's proof, it's control, it's love, twisted into numbers and transactions. And it's also freedom, when you used to finally choose yourself. A year after Dad died, I returned to the city. Not for them. For me. I walked past the old dental clinic, the one I helped save with my savings, back when they didn't ask, they just expected. It was closed now. A faded for-lease sign hung in the window. I didn't stop, just kept walking. I wasn't there to mourn what was lost. I was there to acknowledge what I survived. Later that afternoon, I stopped by the local library. They had added a new plaque to the donor wall. It read, "The Rachel Heart Resilience Fund, supporting education for daughters who stand alone until they rise." No one clapped. No one cried. But inside, something finally settled. I wasn't just the daughter who got left out of the will. I was the woman who learned how to write her own. I heard from Aunt Clara again. She said Shane had moved out. Mom was in assisted living now, paid for with government aid. No more family trust, no more emergency fund, just consequences. I nodded, said nothing. The silence was enough. Sometimes, people ask if I'd ever talk to them again, if forgiveness is still an option. Here's what I say. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about release. And I've already released myself. From guilt. From obligation. From the belief that I had to keep proving I was worthy of love. Now? Isn't about I just love myself. Without permission. Without apology. Because the truth is, they cut me from the will, but they forgot I held the insurance policy. And even more powerful than that, I held the pen. Have you ever had to walk away from people you once called family? Fake-ass-naka. Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power. Send this to someone who needs to know they're not alone.